Carmen, I'm so interested in hearing your story on how you chose to go into matchmaking.
The boring story is I attended a workshop for financial wellness for artists almost a decade ago, and the only other person who attended was a matchmaker. And we hit it off, and she brought me into her company. The fun story is that I was always a meddler. The musical Hello Dolly about a matchmaker. Someone asked her, "What's in it for you?" And she said, "Some people paint, some sew. I meddle." And I was that person in the middle school cafeteria. I'd sit with my guy friends for the first half of lunch. I'd go sit with my girlfriends for the second half of lunch. And over time, you just hear this person has a crush on this person, and no one's doing anything about it. So, being someone who I knew from a young age, I was on the outside of the hetero dating circle, but that was my way of staying involved, was just helping to facilitate all the pieces coming together and coming apart, but it was my way in.
That is such a great story. So, what is your background?
Well, I'm from a very small town, Portland, Connecticut. I grew up just really trying to do as well in all things as I could with the direct mission of I got to get out of this town. So it was very much in all the sports, in all the plays, top of the class kind of situation. Finally went to college, was able to spread my wings, fell in love, really came into my identity. And so I started as a professional actor and director. And it's kind of funny because the art that I was creating, especially as a director, they're all plays that centered queer romances. So, from an artistic point of view, I was really trying to bring stories into the world that helped audiences see how easily lovable queer people are and how abundant queer love could be. And so moving into matchmaking from an artistic background, it's a little bit of the same thing, but instead of creating stories that are imaginative about queer love, now I'm actually helping people write their queer love stories. So I consider them to be almost cousins or siblings in that regard, but it really went from the art into almost the science of dating.
I just have to say, I love how you express yourself. And I'm so grateful that you came into this industry and that you're focused on the LGBTQ community. Let's talk a little bit about the reason why and how important this is
Yeah.
now more than ever.
And I appreciate you saying that. I completely agree. We could not be here without our allies, and I'm so grateful to the people who paved the way for LGBTQ plus matchmaking. Coming into it as someone who grew up LGBTQ, a couple of those letters, through the 90s and early 2000s, it's really funny because I was someone who was closeted for a while. I was someone who thought there was never going to be a queer love story for me. And having come out on the other side of that and really experienced how much life opens up when you are experiencing authentic love, that's the kind of passion that I bring to the work that I do. And I do think allies are really, really necessary in the struggle for liberation. In terms of matchmaking, I think there's something special that happens when someone says to me, I'm a little bit ashamed because I came out in my 30s and I'm receiving that. And then I can reflect back and say, now, as far as I understand it, you were a teenager in the 80s. You went to college in the early 90s. All of the messaging about being gay was, you're going to get AIDS and die.
Yeah.
Now, imagine what that can do to someone and their psychology and just their experience of the world, especially if they're career focused, like a lot of clients are. Ambition is one thing and authenticity is another, but society didn't really let those go hand in hand for the queer community. Having a deep understanding and also personal experience of the hardships, the experiences of the queer community can really just help me help my clients understand that not everything is their fault. Sometimes these problems, this friction exists outside of a person based on how they experience the world and the world experiences them. So I love queer matchmaking because it really helps me to just help the community sort through what is my personal responsibility, what can I control in dating, and what is out of my control that I can adapt to.
I commend you for the work that you're doing. I can see why people will gravitate to you to be their matchmaker because you have such a way of understanding human nature, which is huge. Looking back, you worked for a large company. That experience was very different from the experience you're having now as an entrepreneur. What has that been like? And is this the first time you're an entrepreneur?
I want to say yes. I've done a little bit of that nonprofit work. Being a business owner, especially in the matchmaking world, is unlike anything I've done before. Coming from one of those large corporations, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work with a million different people. I consider it my boot camp training, where it was trial by fire, 5 years of working with a large roster of clients and really just having to diversify my understanding of dating to work with all populations. Eventually, the data just became stacked, and especially the data that pertained to all my conversations with thousands of LGBTQ plus individuals. That is where matchmaking went from a fun job to a career. When I saw, oh my gosh, all of these people in screenings are saying the same things, but they don't know that they can relate to the person I screened before and after them. What can I do with this data that I'm sitting on? It became, I need to boil this down into actionable, tangible steps and feedback for the community to help everyone gain access to this information so that we can all date better. That's where the biggest change came in. There was a lot of data, and now I'm boiling that down into my company where I work with a very focused roster of clients so that I can imbue more of a sense of coaching, more of a sense of that personal touch, and being careful to guide everyone's journey beyond the standard introductions.
Looking back, what do you wish someone had told you before launching your matchmaking company?
I think the biggest thing that I have learned over the last year with my company is to practice patience. Moving towards quantity calibrated my nervous system to rush and to really have a fire under my ass for everything. And in my work now, I've learned that you cannot control people. And so leaning into the slowness of matchmaking is helping me actually help my clients more. For instance, if I meet with someone after this and I say, ooh, I've got 5 great candidates who I'm going to reach out to, my client's going to want me to chat with them tomorrow and tell them the next day how my screenings went. But people are people. And so those screenings are going to take place over the next 2 weeks. If I'm collaborating with a matchmaker, maybe they'll take a few days to get back to me too. And I am practicing patience in the way that I can show up more fully for my clients when I'm taking my time. I don't know about other people, but I don't do my best work when I'm rushing. And so I think now that I don't have those sort of corporate targets to hit, I'm reminding myself that I'm setting my own goals and that maintaining a quality customer experience does not necessarily mean having a match every week. There's a lot of other support that goes into it. And so that's the kind of expansion that I'm learning to embrace on the patient side of things.
That's such a great point. What's been the biggest transition for you?
The biggest change has been what collaboration looks like. At a corporate matchmaking company, I'm meeting with my clients, but to a certain degree, I wasn't doing my own screenings. I wasn't planning the dates. I was doing date feedback. As an executive matchmaker, everything is me with the clients. And yes, there are recruiters, but When I take on a new client, it's no longer, okay, let me dive into our pool and see who's there. And that's the end of the story. Now it's, okay, let me see who's in my database. Okay, I like who's here, but I also would like to consider some other options. Let me reach out to 5 or 6 close matchmakers who I collaborate with to see who they recommend from their pool. Let me reach out to a few recruiters to see who they can headhunt in their own realm. There's much greater emphasis on matchmakers working together to make all of our clients happy. Whereas before it was very much assembly line matchmaking and sort of what you see is what you get. Now it's more creative and it's more collaborative, which are two values that I really enjoy.
What would you say to someone who's considering going into the matchmaking world?
Yeah, I think matchmaking is especially alluring to people now after materialists and just certain things in the cultural zeitgeist. I would recommend immediately starting to engage in deep and difficult discussions with single people. I think that finding matches, building a database is half the battle, but being able to listen to someone and understand what is troubling them and how you can help them or hold space with them is the other half of the battle. I didn't have as a skill until I started matchmaking. And I had all of these experiences. The more I spoke with people, the more I sort of learned how to respond to people. But I think there's an art to holding space for someone's very vulnerable journey of dating and providing feedback in a way that is encouraging. I think that is the art of matchmaking. And that's something where I would say the sooner you can start having those conversations with people, reflecting on how you engage in conversation and what's working for the other person, the better off you'll be once those real difficult conversations come along in business.
That is so true. What would you say to someone coming right out of college and going into matchmaking from a business perspective?
Everyone can choose their own path, but I do see a lot of benefits in working for a larger company first to learn the ropes of how the matchmaking industry works and to get the experience without having to focus on client acquisition and sales. I think working for a larger company where they bring you your clients and you get to be the matchmaker is so valuable so that you can really focus on the matchmaking. I've learned as an entrepreneur that it's easy to get sucked up into the business of it all, the marketing, the sales, just everything behind the scenes. But every time I get into the meetings that are matchmaking, that's when my body goes, this is where you're an expert. This is where we can relax. I'm not a marketing professional. I'm not a sales professional, but I am a professional matchmaker. And I don't know if I would have that comfort if I didn't go through boot camp training first. As an independent entrepreneur, someone right out of college might work with a client here, another client there. And I think there's an advantage to that kind of slow growth. But I think having a diverse roster of clients to work with helps you to see the big picture of matchmaking and what we're really here to do.
Who are your ideal clients?
My ideal client is someone who excelled in school, really was ambitious in their career, and is finally at a place where their career is settled. They like their friends, good relationships within their community. But now they're looking back and saying, oh, I was so tunnel visioned on success for whatever that looked like that I did not consider love. And now all the people around me are happily in love, and I don't have that. And I think as queer people, it's really easy to throw ourselves into how can I be the most successful version of myself to sort of overcompensate for that early shame. And I think in doing so, we see these people who build incredible lives, and then they're just missing that one piece of the puzzle. The clients I like working with most are people who are like, I'm happy. I really did this for myself. I have a great career. I love my friends. I love to travel, but I need some help with dating because they just missed that curve. And so I also work with other people, right? Divorcees, a lot of people who are looking for their first queer relationship. But I think the common fabric is that there is a full life and they don't need a partner to make themselves happy, but they're at a place where they're ready to date and they want to hire someone who can help them do that with expertise.
That is such a great picture of a niche, and it's so clear.
If I want my body to be in tip top shape, I'm going to hire a personal trainer. And it's no different. You can go in the gym and try every machine, and after a month, maybe figure out what machines you like. Or you can hire someone who's an expert to say, what are your goals? Okay, this is the best way to accomplish it, and just be more efficient about it.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Pride Matchmaking. I love the name of your company. If you're Pride Matchmaking, you know exactly what it's all about.
Right on the
And
nose.
right? But thank you so much for your time. I think this is such an important conversation for people to hear and to seriously consider. We're celebrating National Matchmakers Day, August 31st. And
Ah, thank you, Arlene. You know I love chatting with you, and thanks for doing this series. It's very cool.
thank you.